Hey, college football fans, welcome back. Wow, week 5 was impressive with a lot of changes to the AP Top 25 and a lot of movement within my own resume ranking system. Let's jump in and see how things look. So here we go. Here's the AP Top 25. You can see most of my arrows are green. A lot of them are pointing up, basically meaning that they did as I expected or they did better than expected. Um, I'll start with Alabama as they go back into the top 25 slot right here. They beat a number 20 Arkansas. I think it was their best win of the season. They've got a few more tough games ahead of them. This win actually gave them quite a bit of improvements in my ranking system as well. I think if they stay this course, they're going to be just fine. Maybe they probably do deserve to be number one. I just wish they wouldn't waste the whole month of September getting there. Georgia, I could have lived with them staying number one with this 4-point victory, but we punished Alabama by one. I guess they punished Georgia by one. To me, it doesn't really matter. These top 4 slots here, that's kind of what everyone's playing for to get into the CFP. So, who cares? One or two, I don't know. Doesn't seem to matter that much to me. We'll talk lot more about the Big Ten and the Ohio State and Michigan situation. I'm a lot happier with Michigan. I made them a green flat arrow. Ohio State, did a little digging on them. Do you know that they've only played home games so far? I think that's a travesty. I'm going to call that out here later on in the blog. Clemson playing NC State. I think they redeemed themselves quite a bit from last week's super tight double overtime win. The only other game I'll call out here that I was really happy about, or at least I liked the game, maybe I should say it that way, was Oklahoma State and Baylor. I watched most of this game. I think Oklahoma State played a much better overall game. They won it by 11. I really think Oklahoma State is the clear leader in the Big 12. I don't think you can say Baylor is out of it. There are some things that they did not do that I've seen them do in the past. So whether that was Oklahoma State shutting them down, or Baylor was off by for some reason, uh, I guess is yet to be seen. So we'll just kind of see where this plays out. But there's a lot that's going to happen here in the Big 12 competition that I think really will set the tail. And I think Oklahoma State is in the driver's seat for driving that story. Excuse me. Ole Miss and Kentucky. Hey, Ole Miss gets the upset. All I can say is Kentucky, you had plenty of chances to win that thing. So, that's where you are. You guys flop these slots here. The rest of it, pretty much as expected. I'm not really going to make any commentary, so we can move on to better things. All right, we look at the bottom half of the table. Lots happened here. You can see there are 7 new entries into the top 25, and that's only half the story that's going on in here. I'm okay with this Wake Forest Florida State thing. I still think Florida State is better than getting knocked out of the top 25, but hey, it's a cutthroat game when you play at this level. Wake Forest ended up winning. I thought Wake Forest should have been higher ranked after their loss to Clemson last week. So that's just them pulling their way back in. BYU, I'm just going to say, I think you're in trouble if you can't play the first half of the game. I think you're really going to struggle against an improving Notre Dame team. And after that, you got Arkansas. Either of those teams beat you, by 10 points, let's say, or better, I think you're out of the top 25 and they're back in. And that's just the facts of life, right? So BYU, you're ranked 16 right now. You better figure it out, or I think you're going to be out really, really quickly because your next 2 games are from some folks who are potentially very hungry to get their way back into the top 25. Really happy with TCU, UCLA. I did an extra broadcast on those guys last week, calling them out as undefeateds that weren't ranked. I think they're getting what they deserve right now in a positive way. Good wins over Oklahoma and Washington. Some of these others, I think, are playing it out. I'll call Syracuse out. They were one of those undefeated teams that weren't ranked. They actually had, before this game against an FCS opponent, which isn't going to help, right? But they actually had, through 4 games, right, the third most difficult schedule if you compared them to the top 5 undefeated teams. You know, your Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, Clemson, and Ohio State. They had the third most difficult schedule there, yet they weren't in the top 25 before this week. So congratulations to them. I think you got plenty of room to stay here. I don't see Big Ten competition being that difficult for you, and I'm going to cover that here in just a few minutes. All right, now here's looking at the data sorted against my resume rankings. You can see Clemson comes in at number 1. Basically, they climb their way up the polls because if you'll recall, you get additional points for how rated your opponent is. They played 2 top 25 teams, one of them being a top 10 over the last 2 weeks. Nobody else has really done that to my knowledge. So Clemson, through the scoring system, comes up now at 63, which is the top score for the for the resume rankings this week. I've got TCU and Kansas State highlighted in green. Basically, they're coming into this poll. They have played some really good opponents before they got rated and before I started really looking at them closely. Here's what I think is interesting, and I'll talk about this even more on the next slide. But you've got TCU, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, and Kansas, all about to play each other over the next 3 to 4 weeks. TCU particularly is going to play Kansas first, followed by Oklahoma State, followed by Kansas State over the next 4 weeks. I think they've got a bye in there. Right, that is going to be a bloodbath. If TCU comes through that, they may well score up into the 70s if they don't end up knocking these opponents completely out of the top 25. Be really exciting to watch. I'm kind of watching Oklahoma State. I think they've got a little more pedigree. Definitely, you know, they've got the preseason ranking and they've been working the preseason side of it a lot better than the other schools. So starting at number 7, I think is going to help them if they can maintain. I'll tell you, I put Oklahoma State in the top 4, and I think they should be the CFP bid, Big 12 champion, you know, on down. It's still a long ways to go. We got to get to November, but I think that's a real possibility. Now, here's why I don't like the Big Ten. I looked at Michigan and I looked at Ohio State. You know, Michigan finally had a win that I think I would call the game was impressive. And so they're climbing their way up. I'm not going to bash on them like I have in the past. Ohio State, I looked a little bit closer. Ohio State has played 5 home games. You look at their entire schedule, they've got 8 home games scheduled. 75% of their schedule is a home game. That is just an unfair advantage for people to travel in there and have to compete in that huge stadium. It's impressive. The NFL's done studies on, you know, teams having to travel more than 1,000 miles or whatever. And I think it's even worse for the college student athlete. So there you go. At the moment, I am anti-Ohio State, and I look at their entire schedule, and unless Michigan State can come back into some prominence, like I don't see anybody competing with these guys until they play Penn State, and that's 3 or 4 weeks out. Right? So we'll see. Like I said, I'm disappointed in the Big Ten that they didn't schedule the competition. They're hanging back and just getting the easy win. So we'll see where they go. But like I said, I'm hoping for Penn State. That's just my new mantra at this stage. All right. As I talked about, here's why the Big 12 is so interesting to me. All right, we talked about this one slide back or so, but you've got TCU scheduled to play Kansas State, Kansas, and Oklahoma State. TCU gets through that cleanly, they're going to be well into this part of the chart. Likewise, Oklahoma State gets through those games cleanly. They're probably going to move their way down here. I would recommend that Oklahoma State be second or third. What I'm concerned about is these 3 teams in particular are going to have a bloodbath with each other. They're probably going to knock each other out of the top 25. So TCU would probably come, if they work through that, probably comes in here 11 or 12. Oklahoma State has the most to gain by coming in here. If Kansas or Kansas State runs that table, I don't think they're going to do better than about 15. So just that's the bloodbath that's going to go on. Looking at the overrated side of the table, Ohio State stays up there high for the reasons we just talked about. Alabama, I expect, will come back in and will tighten this up because they've got a pretty decent schedule coming up here. And a good chance that like Arkansas comes back into the top 25, especially if Arkansas beats BYU and BYU's still rated 2 weeks from now. All right, there you have it. That is the fun of week 5 and the anticipation of week 6. That's all I've got for you today. I love college football. I hope you love it too. Feel free to subscribe and like this. Let me know if there's something you want to see. I'm going to try to do some analysis on the actual conferences to look at before we go into Saturday's competition. But sit back and enjoy, and let's have a great discussion about college football.